I said in the beginning that come next year, if this team doesn't reach its potential, doesn't make the playoffs, I would definitely make a move on myself.
But when Jimmy O'Brien took over, it was a different ballgame because for Jimmy O'Brien to win, he knew the team was underachieving. And he knew that the way Rick Pitino was going about it was not getting it done. So he did a complete 180 and gave Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce the keys and said, you do what you do, and we'll figure out the rest around you. And once Paul Pierce was freed from the shackles of the Rick Pitino system and free to score, free to shoot at will, free to create his own offense, that's when Paul Pierce became Paul Pierce.
Pierce for two. Wasn't much defense. Pierce again.
One night in Los Angeles against the reigning and eventual world champion Lakers, he goes toe-to-toe, neck and neck, down to the wire. He carries an undermanned Celtics team against the preeminent team in the NBA with the preeminent player in the NBA, and Shaquille O'Neal. And after the game, Shaq grabs a couple of reporters and he says, write this down. Paul Pierce is the truth.
Shaq's proclamation not only gave Pierce his moniker, it elevated him into the national landscape. Pierce and the Celtics would build off their strong finish to 2001, winning 49 games and charge all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 14 seasons. It seemed Pierce was on top of the basketball world. He was a first-time All-Star, made All-NBA, and was selected to the 2002 men's national squad. However, that particular group made infamous history, losing with NBA players for the first time ever in international play. The blame, spearheaded by the team's head coach, George Karl, fell at the feet of Pierce.
That next year was the first year Pierce has not improved individually. Whether it was the case he was just exhausted from the long calendar year of basketball, whether it was from all the heat of George Karl. Pierce is still Pierce. That's good enough to get the Celtics to the playoffs, but it's clear that the team around him was flawed. New ownership comes in, they hire Danny Ainge, and he makes no qualms about it. We're tearing this thing down. Season after that, he hires Doc Rivers. It's a whole new ball game.
Pierce not only had to deal with another long and painful rebuilding process, he was now going to play and develop under a new coach and new offensive system, one that was not going to give him the same offensive freedom he had grown accustomed to.
He had the bad experience with George Karl in the World Championships, trying to fit back into that team environment, and then all of a sudden, Doc Rivers was here, and he no longer had the freedom that he had under Jimmy O'Brien. It was an inevitable clash between those two.
He just didn't have the experience around him at that time, for the team to be, a contender. And obviously it's a little frustrating to him because he'd been on teams that got to the conference finals. He thought there would just be a progression on and on to that championship banner, and took a little bit of a circuitous path, but he eventually got there.